What happens when dignity is dismissed mid-air and a mother's silence holds more power than anyone could imagine? It was a warm spring morning at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in Atlanta. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a golden hue across the runway. The world bustled with travelers, some in tailored suits talking hurriedly into Bluetooth headsets, others in matching family t-shirts excited for a vacation. Among them, one figure moved quietly through the terminal, a 72-year-old black woman with a worn leather tote, a pressed cardigan, and silver curls neatly pinned beneath a navy blue hat. Her name was Mrs. Helen Grant. She had never flown private before. In fact, she'd barely flown at all. Just a handful of commercial flights over the years, and never alone. But today was special. Her daughter, Amara, had invited her to accompany her on a trip to San Francisco. Not on a commercial flight, but on a private jet. Amara had arranged everything. Helen clutched her navy blue boarding envelope as she passed through security and made her way to the private charter terminal, a section of the airport she never even knew existed. It was all glass walls and polished tile, marble counters, and soft jazz in the background. Everything smelled of leather and money. She stepped up to the reception desk. The young woman behind it barely looked up. "Can I help you?" Helen smiled gently. "Yes, I'm a passenger on flight 715 to San Francisco. Name's Helen Grant." The receptionist tapped the keyboard and scanned the passenger manifest. Her eyes flicked over Helen briefly. "You're on the list. We'll start boarding in about 10 minutes. Have a seat." Helen sat down in a leather chair by the window, watching the tarmac bustle with activity. She couldn't help but feel a bit out of place. She wasn't dressed like the others. No designer luggage, no heels, just a worn Bible in her tote, and the handmade scarf her late husband used to say brought out her eyes. The boarding call came, and Helen rose quietly, shuffling her tote onto her shoulder. Flight 715 was a Blue Ridge Air luxury jet, sleek, modern, with a gleaming white body and tinted windows. Helen slowly climbed the stairs. At the cabin door, a tall blonde woman in a sharply pressed navy uniform greeted her. "Name?" the woman asked, her smile forced. "Helen Grant." "I believe I'm in seat 2A. The flight attendant's eyes darted to the boarding pass. Her name tag read Erica. She narrowed her eyes. "Ta? That's a first-class suite." "Yes, my daughter booked it." Erica gave a tight-lipped smile. "Uh-huh. Well, that seat's reserved for VIPs, Mom. Maybe you're mistaken. Let me see that." Helen handed over the pass. Erica studied it. "Well, I guess it does say 2A. Strange. Hold on." She turned and whispered something to another attendant, rolling her eyes. The two shared a chuckle. Helen stood there silently, clutching her tote. "Mom, I think you might be confused," Erica said loudly. "This is a very exclusive flight. Maybe your daughter meant a different jet. Let me take you to the back while we sort this out." Helen opened her mouth, then closed it. She followed Erica quietly past the luxurious leather recliners, past the champagne tray, past the rows of polished brass fixtures, until they reached the back of the plane. "You can sit here," Erica said, gesturing toward a smaller aisle seat, near the rear. "Less crowded back here anyway." Helen sat. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed her tote on her lap. Passengers trickled in. A businessman nodded at Erica. A couple in matching sweaters laughed over something on their phones. No one looked at Helen. Meanwhile, inside the terminal, Amara Grant signed the final documents for the acquisition of Blue Ridge Air's private charter wing. Just 35 years old and already a leader in aerospace technology, Amara was sharp, poised, and fiercely proud of her roots. She had grown up watching her mother balance work and community, reading bedtime stories in between night shifts, always making sure Amara knew she could become anything. And now, Amara was taking her mother to San Francisco, on a jet she now owned. Back on board, Erica moved through the cabin, offering drinks and greeting regular VIPs. When she passed Helen again, she barely made eye contact. "Water?" she asked brusquely. "Yes, thank you." Erica returned a moment later and handed her a paper cup, then walked away without another word. Helen stared at the cup for a long time. She felt small, invisible, and the quiet ache in her chest was growing. At that moment, Amara boarded the jet. She stepped into the cabin with confident strides, greeting the pilot and crew with a warm but professional tone. Erica turned, instantly, putting on her brightest smile. "Welcome aboard, Miss Grant. Can I show you to your seat?" Amara didn't respond immediately. Her eyes had already scanned the rows. Her brow furrowed. "Where's my mother?" Erica blinked. "Your mother?" "Yes. Helen Grant." Erica's face paled. She said she had 2A, but there was a mix-up, so I had her seated toward the back. I thought it was... she didn't look..." Amara held up a hand. "Stop." She walked down the aisle, eyes scanning until she found her mother. Helen looked up, surprised. "Sweetheart." "It's fine," she said softly. "No," Amara replied. "It's not." She turned around. The cabin was now quiet. Passengers listened. Erica stood frozen. "Everyone, my name is Amara Grant. I am the CEO of Grant Tech, Aeronautics, and the new owner of this jet and its charter line. The woman seated here, the one you all ignored or watched be moved to the back, is my mother." Gasps. Whispers. The businessman in the grey suit shifted uncomfortably. Amara continued. "She earned that seat. It was reserved for her, because she is the reason I am here today." She took her mother's hand. "Come on, Mama. Let's go to the front." Helen stood, tears quietly welling in her eyes. The cabin parted for them as they walked back to 2A. Amara helped her into the plush leather seat, then turned back to the cabin. "And for the record," she said, her voice firm, "this seat was always hers." The engines hummed, the cabin remained silent, and the flight was just beginning. Respect can't be bought, but it can be remembered. And for Erica, the flight attendant, that memory was about to be burned in for good. The plane had reached cruising altitude. Outside, the world stretched endlessly in a blanket of white clouds, peaceful and silent. But inside the cabin of Flight 715, tensions still lingered like the scent of spilled wine. Amara sat beside her mother in seat 2A, her tablet in hand, trying to read an investor report. But she couldn't focus. Every so often, she would glance at her mother, still quiet, staring out the window, and her heart would tighten. Helen wasn't the type to cause a scene. She never had been. Even now, after being humiliated, she had simply taken the back seat. No fuss, no tears, just quiet dignity. But Amara had seen the way her hands trembled. She had seen the way Erica looked at her like she didn't belong, and that image was burned into her mind. At the rear of the cabin, Erica hovered near the galley, nervously arranging napkins and polishing an already spotless tray. The humiliation from earlier still burned on her cheeks. She had never imagined the older woman she dismissed so quickly could be connected to someone like Amara Grant, let alone be her mother. And now, every move felt like walking on eggshells. "Erica," came the voice of the second steward, a younger man named Matteo. "You okay?" She nodded quickly. "Yeah, just didn't see that coming." Matteo gave her a look. "You didn't ask, you assumed." She flinched at the truth. "I thought I was doing my job, making sure people were in the right seats." Matteo raised a brow. "Really? Or were you doing what's easy instead of what's right?" Erica didn't answer. Meanwhile, a few rows ahead, whispers stirred. Some passengers had overheard the confrontation. Others had simply watched the scene unfold in silence, guilt blooming in their chests. No one had stepped in. No one had questioned Erica when Helen was dismissed. Now, a new energy simmered. "Did you know who she was?" whispered a woman in pearls to the man beside her. "No," But she didn't deserve that, he replied. Even the businessman in the grey suit, who had impatiently cleared his throat earlier, shifted in his seat, visibly uncomfortable. He had seen her, judged her, and moved on. Now he couldn't meet Amara's eyes. In the cockpit, the pilot received a message over secure line. Amara Grant had requested an immediate report on crew behavior and passenger service logs following this flight. The request wasn't routine. It was a signal. The owner was watching. At hour 2, Erica gathered her courage and approached 2A, a tray of fruit and fresh mint water in hand. She cleared her throat. Ms. Grant, Mrs. Grant, may I offer you something? Helen turned slowly, then nodded with a polite, unreadable expression. Thank you. Erica hesitated. I owe you both an apology. Amara looked up. That's not necessary, not yet. Erica blinked. I'm sorry? Amara stood slowly, set her tablet down. You assumed my mother didn't belong here. You judged her on what she wore, how she looked. That's not something you fix with fruit and water. Helen, ever the calm center of the storm, rested a hand gently on her daughter's arm. Amara! Amara turned to her. No, Mama. She needs to hear this. She faced Erica again. This isn't just about you. This is about how people like my mother are treated every day. People who look like her. People who don't wear status like a badge. You didn't just move her to the back. You pushed a whole generation's worth of dignity aside without blinking. Erica's throat tightened. Her voice was barely a whisper. I wasn't thinking. I was just going by procedure. And that's the problem, Amara replied. When the procedure comes before people, that's when humanity fails. For a long moment, no one spoke. Erica's hands trembled around the tray. Then Helen, with grace worn into her bones, looked up. I forgive you, young lady, she said softly. But forgiveness doesn't mean we forget. It means we remember and do better. Tears filled Erica's eyes. She set the tray gently on the side table, nodded, and walked away. Back at the galley, Matteo said nothing, just handed her a tissue. As the sun began to dip beyond the clouds, turning the sky shades of orange and blue, Amara looked out the window. Mama, she said quietly, I wanted today to be special. I wanted to show you the life you helped me build. Helen took her hand. It still is. You showed me something even better. What's that? Helen smiled. That we still have the power to teach, even when they don't expect us to. They sat in silence as the jet continued toward the horizon, and while the world outside grew darker, something inside the cabin had changed, an awakening, one that wouldn't fade when the plane landed. Apologies can start a conversation, but only actions rewrite the story. And this one was far from over. By the time Flight 715 reached the final third of its journey, a stillness had settled over the cabin. Not just the lull of altitude, but a shared awareness that something meaningful had happened. Passengers spoke more softly now. Smiles were tentative. Even the hum of the engines seemed quieter. Amara sat beside her mother, laptop closed. The report she'd been trying to review had long been forgotten. Helen had dozed off gently beside her, hands folded in her lap, her breathing soft and steady. Amara watched her with a warmth only daughters understand. This woman, who had raised her on second-hand books and church wisdom, had spent a lifetime being overlooked by people like Erica. And yet, she had never grown bitter, never let that dismissiveness harden her. In a few hours, they'd land in San Francisco, where Amara was scheduled to speak on a global innovation panel. But none of that felt as important anymore. Today, Amara had remembered something deeper than ambition. Why she had built what she built. She opened the in-flight messaging tablet and typed a message directly to her VP of Operations. Initiate a full audit of Blue Ridge Air cabin crew training and guest interaction. Focus on DEI compliance and human empathy frameworks. Report to me within 5 days. She hit send. Meanwhile, Erica stood inside the narrow galley, her shoulders tense. She was reviewing standard operating procedures, trying to find something, anything, that could justify her actions. But she couldn't. Matteo stepped in behind her with a sympathetic glance. "How long you been in aviation?" he asked. "Almost 8 years," she replied. "Ever made a mistake this big before?" She shook her head. "Then don't run from it. Learn from it." If she hadn't spoken up, you might have never seen yourself clearly. Erica exhaled, eyes misty. "I didn't mean it." "I know, but intent doesn't always cancel impact." In row 4, the man in the grey suit stood and walked slowly toward 2A. He cleared his throat, waited until Amara looked up. "Ms. Grant, I just wanted to say, I was wrong earlier. The way I looked at your mother, I judged her. That was on me." Amara studied him. "Thank you for saying that." He hesitated. "I've got a mother in Detroit, 75. Doesn't fly much. If someone ever treated her the way your mum was treated..." He didn't finish the sentence. Amara nodded. "Then don't just remember this moment. Carry it. Make it change how you move in the world." He smiled faintly and returned to his seat. Erica knew what she had to do. She approached again, this time not with a tray or water, but empty hands and heavy steps. She knelt beside Helen's seat. "Mrs. Grant," she began softly, "I know words can't erase what I did, but I want to tell you something I should have said earlier. I'm sorry. Not because I got caught, because I was wrong." Helen stirred, slowly opening her eyes. She looked at the young woman beside her for a long moment. "I accept your apology," she said gently. "But you have to mean it in how you act tomorrow, not just in what you say today." Erica nodded. "I do." Amara leaned in slightly. "After we land, I'll be speaking with your supervisor. I've already started a review process across the company." Erica straightened. "I understand. This isn't just about consequences," Amara added. "It's about culture, about whether you're willing to unlearn what made today happen." Erica nodded again, her voice barely audible. "I want to learn." Amara extended a hand, not to shake, but to set a boundary. "Then start by listening, not to me, to people you've never really seen before." Erica turned and left quietly. Back in the cockpit, the pilot got word that the jet was on its final descent. The skyline of San Francisco began to peek through the clouds, golden light painting the bay. Amara gently nudged her mother awake. Helen smiled, blinking slowly. "Are we there yet?" "Almost." "Good, you've got a speech to give." Amara grinned. "I think I already did." Helen reached over and gave her daughter's hand a gentle squeeze. "You did good, baby." Amara looked out the window. The city came into view, and somewhere in that soft silence, a new mission was born. Not just building better planes, but building better people. What starts in silence can echo forever. The landing was just the beginning. The wheels of Flight 715 touched down with a soft thud at San Francisco International, the golden hour painting the runway in warm tones of amber and rose. The jet slowed to a crawl as it taxied toward a private terminal. But inside, no one rushed to unbuckle their belts or leap to their feet. Instead, the cabin held a quiet reverence, as if each person was still processing what had unfolded over the course of the flight. Amara helped her mother with her seatbelt. Helen, composed as ever, adjusted her scarf and gave her daughter a gentle nod. "That was quite a ride," she said softly. Amara smiled. "More than I expected, but just as it needed to be." The flight crew prepared the exit, and the jet bridge rolled into place. Erica stood at the front, hands clasped, eyes lowered, not out of fear this time, but out of humility. She didn't know what would come next, but she was prepared to face it. As Helen and Amara walked down the aisle, some passengers stopped them. "Mom, I hope we see more leaders like you," said the man in the grey suit. Thank you for speaking up, whispered a young woman in sweats. That meant a lot. Amara acknowledged them with quiet grace. Helen just offered them the same kind of knowing nod she had given students for decades, a nod that said, grow from this. Outside the jet, a sleek black car waited for them. Helen climbed in first, and Amara turned back to face Erica one last time. You'll receive formal communication from HR, she said calmly. You'll have a choice to make, one that will define who you are from here forward. Erica nodded. I'm ready to make the right one. Amara offered a single nod in return. We'll see. She entered the car, and it rolled off into the distance, the city skyline coming into view. 3 weeks later, inside the headquarters of Blue Ridge Air, changes were already taking shape. Every crew member, past, present, and new, was enrolled in a mandatory empathy and cultural bias training program. A new mentorship track was created for underrepresented employees. Passenger review feedback became tied directly to crew evaluations for the first time in company history. But the most notable change wasn't in the policy, it was in the atmosphere. Crew members started looking each other in the eye more, listening more. The silence that once filled awkward moments became moments of thought instead. Erica, she took her suspension seriously. She read the training materials 3 times over. She volunteered for extra community outreach shifts. And on her first day back, she didn't request her old position. She requested to shadow the new DEI director. Her story would never be erased, but maybe it didn't need to be. Maybe it just needed to become a starting point. At the Grant Tech Aeronautics headquarters, Amara sat at her desk, reviewing feedback from her San Francisco speech. One comment stood out. Your story reminded me why compassion is powerful. My mother was invisible too. Thank you. Amara closed her laptop and leaned back. Her office overlooked the city, but her eyes saw something beyond the skyline. She saw her mother, boarding a plane in silence, standing tall when the world told her to shrink. And now, she was no longer invisible. In Atlanta, at a small church tucked between neighborhoods, Helen Grant returned to her old routine. Bible study, gardening, helping young kids with homework. But her story had traveled far beyond those stained glass walls. A reporter from a national magazine reached out. Helen declined the interview. I don't need my name in lights, she told them. Just treat the next woman better. Months later, a new sign was added to the Blue Ridge Air Training Center. Above the entrance, in bold lettering, dignity is not a seat assignment, it's a standard. Underneath, a plaque, in honor of Mrs. Helen Grant, whose silence reminded us how to listen. And across lounges, jetways, and offices, people started asking different questions. Who am I overlooking? Who do I rush past? And what does it cost to pause, to see, to value someone? Not for who they appear to be, but for who they are. The answers weren't printed in manuals. They lived in moments, like one quiet flight, and one woman's seat. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us how simple respect can change everything.